How's everybody doing today? You're watching Slot Car Mayhem. I'm John, and this will be episode 4 of the Glendale 65. The beginning of the layout, the expansion, is complete. The layout itself is configured partially as a point and shoot type of layout where you've got these really long straights. You come out of a curve, you just nail it and pick it up. And there's more of a slightly technical infield section that's going to be changing elevations as it's winding around. Both the ends of the two long straights go into decreasing radius turns, and they're usually followed by some sort of switchback or S-turn or something of that nature, with radius decreasing further. And that makes it a little challenging, a little nice when you're coming in, because you can't just, power through the turn. You've really got to drive the turn and go ahead and before you hit these long straights. And I've heard many times a lot of people don't care for the R1 radius turns, and I think that they have a place, and I've used them several spots in this layout for intentional reasons, that they do have a distinct purpose. One of the most important usages of the R1 radii is coming right here, this hairpin we have at the end of the track, as I would call it, right before you enter the beginning of the main straight. And this R1 has one purpose and one purpose only, that is to slow down the traffic prior to entry into the pit lane. Now right over here we have an out to in curve lane change, and that's your last chance to make sure you can get to the pit lane if you need to. That being said, things will slow down here, and that is by design, because nobody wants to take this here at full speed, right? Because we know what happens. So you always end up slowing down right when you hit the pit area, and you're going to have to slow down all the way through the duration of the pit area. So the slowdown is mandatory, and this R1 we have here will help generate that. Another one of the really interesting features here is the second pit lane dedicated just for the safety car. And that's not necessarily the interesting point. The interesting point is all the lane changers are designed to put the cars away from the pit lane that we're seeing right here. So how in the world am I going to get the safety car to return, right? Well, I've got a little trick for that, and when the time comes, I'll go ahead and I'll post a video up of that one about how to make that work. Okay, one of the items I can't wait to start scratch building, and once again, please pardon my disgusting use of paint cans to elevate the track, is going to be the bridge section. And what I've decided to do is my bridge section is not necessarily going to be what you think it's going to be. It's not going to be a bridge like you'd find on a racetrack or anything like that. I'm actually going to be doing a DOT bridge. I want people who come over, the casual observer or the occasional visitor, to be able to immediately relate to the bridge as something they see every day, and in fact have probably driven over or under one or more of these on the way over here to the house. And that way when they leave, they're going to have to drive over and under, and they're going to go click, and they're going to think about it, and they're going to remember. So it's something they can relate to, and that tends to go a long way as far as realism is concerned, is making sure that people see every day what you're doing. So the bridge, they're big focal points for people. The bridge is going to be a DOT bridge, so that ought to be interesting. Okay, currently right now, with the track configured the way it is, I'm looking at about between 7.5 seconds for a lap time, and that will probably be the base and considered a good lap time for a stock, box stock Carrera car. And that's pretty much pushing it. So we got some respectable lap times here, and of course I've got to go through and reconfigure all my pre-set up races and things like that, because they were based on a 3.5 second lap time on the other layout that we had. And this one here, well, we got these long straights and they make a big difference. So there's going to be a lot of different experimenting going on with how we're going to set up races and make it work for this particular layout. But I'll tell you, I've got a lot of laps on it already, and I'm really enjoying driving this layout. It's something you've got to manage all the way through, yet it's not hard to drive. There is a distinct racing line, and that distinct racing line, if you choose to take it, does require attention. Getting into the pits does require a little bit of attention, and your behavior inside the pits as far as making sure you stop in the appropriate place in the pits also requires attention. So this track, even though it looks relatively simple, is enough to keep the drivers on their toes, and that's kind of what we've been after. Something a little bit more challenging, but yet you can sit around and have a few buddies over and sit around, and y'all can just belly up around the table here, have a beer or whatever, and you can just casually run slot cars. And I'll tell you, it's easy to drive in that respect. So there's a lot of character built into this little layout, and personally right now I'm quite happy with it. Okay, let's go ahead and fire up the unit, and let's just show you that everything does in fact work. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start the smart race.
Welcome to the Glendale 65.
I had to throw that little song in there now because I could.
Secondary devices are now active.
And it will report when these are active and available for use. So I'll go ahead and hit the control unit, and it's going to click in. There it is, and we're good and we're ready to go. Everything seems to function just fine. I can turn on my fast clock, and it's going to go ahead and do its change, do what it needs to do. So that all seems to function. So for right now, I'm calling the Glendale 65 a very enjoyable success. And I got to admit, I've had a lot of fun working with this and driving with this. And I think this is the general flow of the layout that we're going to want. So I'm very happy with the results. The next thing that's going to be happening, once we decide and we get the layout tuned in the way we want, then it's going to be marked and placed exactly where it needs to go on the table itself here. Once we get that position set and everything's where it needs to be, then all these wood areas that you see here and here, all these, they're going to be cut away, and we're going to leave just a little bit on either side of the track itself, and the rest of it's going to be just open. And it's going to look like this framework on a skeleton, and that's when all the elevation changes and everything are going to be built in. And then the track will be on its own road bed, and that'll be the next step. After that, that's when we begin the power drops, and that's another adventure we're going to get to, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. That might be a little bit different than what you're used to. So we've still got a lot coming up here with the track, and there's going to be a lot of evolution as we go through. And like I said, once we get through the skeleton stage and we get our power drops put in, that's when the landscaping starts. So all that's going to be taking place. There's going to be a lot of activity here on a regular basis. So go ahead, if you're not subscribing or if you don't get the notifications, go ahead and slam those buttons, guys, because we're going to have a lot of stuff happening here. Okay, that should be it. Once again, welcome to the Glendale 65, as the layout is set up as it's supposed to be. And as always, thank you for all the subscriptions and all the nice comments. And it's nice taking you guys along for the ride with me. This has been a lot of fun. And as always, have a great night, and thanks for watching.